Hello! Just driving up our lane. We're going to do a video and hopefully be able to show you some of the principles of overtaking and lifesavers and stuff like that. People have asked us to do it. We'll try our best. We hope it will work out. We'll see what turns up. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to talk about observations and why they're so important, and when are the best times to do observations and overtaking. And if we can't find any cars to overtake, we'll we'll have to use Toby, who's following behind me. Okay, so let's get on. Overtaking is probably the most dangerous thing we do on a bike, and although a lot of people don't think it is dangerous, it is, because we're effectively putting ourselves onto the other side of the road, into the path of oncoming traffic in many cases. And I always find it bizarre when I'm teaching people, you know, for their advanced rider tickets and things like that, how easy it is for them to take risks and accept those risks, and they don't really need to. You know, as an advanced rider, we don't break the speed limit. We you know, if you can't do an overtake inside the speed limit, that's because the overtake isn't on. So we use a system called IPSCA, which stands for Information, Position, Speed, Gear and Acceleration. And basically your whole ride is governed by this system. And it's in the book called Roadcraft, which is the what the British police train their motorcyclists on. And it's worth understanding. In fact, it's worth getting a copy of that, just have a read of it, because it does sort of change your perceptions on certain things. Anyway, overtaking. So when we're getting ready for overtaking, we're in a following position, usually, you know, a couple of seconds behind a car or whatever it is we're going to overtake. And there's lots of information we need to gather. We need to make sure that we can do a proper overtake safely. We need to make sure that we can get back in once we've gone past somebody. We need to make sure it's safe to do the overtake. And it's also important that we don't cause anyone any mishaps, you know, with regards to pulling in too quickly and things like that. And we've got to give people the opportunity to see us. So using that system, we attempt to do good, clean overtakes. And I find when I go out with people, sometimes you see them do an overtake and you just go, my God, you know, there's really no need to do that. You've cut yourself in really short. You haven't given yourself enough time. You've caused the vehicles either side, in front of you or behind you, to brake because of your stupidity. And it doesn't have to be like that. It really doesn't have to be like that. So when we start off getting in position for overtake, we're 2 seconds behind a car, following car. Let's say it's going to be a car, and it might be Toby taking the position of a car. And when we begin to do our overtake, we're checking our surroundings, we're taking in information, we're looking at the road, the surface of the road, make sure there's no junctions coming out on the right hand side, no junctions on the left, nothing going to impede our overtake. And then we're actually going to move up into a closer following position, say a second behind a car, you know, which is still quite a distance. And that gives us enough time to plan our overtake, and if the overtake isn't going to happen, we can always drop back to the 2 second spot again and plan for your next opportunity. What we don't want people to do is what you see people doing all the time, and they're right on the backside of a vehicle they're following, which is quite intimidating for the driver. There's no need to do it, because if you're planning your overtake properly, you're going to come up briefly there in the 1 second position for a short period of time, quickly overtake, and then you're back in, and then you're off. So it doesn't have to be an aggressive manoeuvre, but time and again you see motorcyclists doing this really aggressive overtaking. They're exceeding the speed limit. In many cases they're exceeding their own abilities as well. So we'll talk about getting this right. We're just waiting for a vehicle to come up now. We can actually get on and do some overtaking. Okay, so I'm 2 seconds away. I'm now into the 1 second following position. I'm putting myself out to the opposite side of the where Toby is, so I can see down the road. We've got a right hand bend coming up, which doesn't mean I can't overtake, it just means I have to be very careful. I'm checking my mirrors. Okay, there's no overtake, so I've dropped back again to a 2 second position. And that's what overtaking is all about. It's not about just, I'm going to do an overtake and committing yourself to that. When we're dealing with advanced riding in particular, you know, we're trying to produce riders to an advanced standard who are thinking riders. You know, how many times do you go out with people who are just driving quite recklessly, and you know, you get old riders, you get bold riders, but you don't get old bold ones. You know, you're going to have an accident if you drive in a reckless fashion. So it pays off to be a little bit calculating when you're riding. And also when we're talking about doing our overtakes, okay, it's got to be a smooth thing. It hasn't got to be a rush thing. Like, there's an overtake, I've got to do it. Okay, there's lots of things to consider. You've got to consider people following you, if they're going to attempt the overtake. So you've got to do your rear observations. You do that by looking in your mirror. You've got to make sure there's nothing coming towards you that's going to let you cause you a problem. You don't want to do an overtake where you've got, like in this case here, we've got a junction coming in from the right. Certainly don't want to do one with a junction coming in from the left as well. If there's a car sat there, he might not see you behind the vehicle you want to overtake, and so he might just pull out, which causes the vehicle you're following to possibly overtake as well, to pull out in front of you. So there's a lot of things to consider, and when you put that all into practice, you can see how easy it is for motorcyclists to have serious accidents, which they do on a regular basis, which is really unfortunate, but that's the way it is. So you'll notice that as we're riding along, we're doing lots of observations all around the place. Okay, and we're also doing over the shoulders. What's an over the shoulder look? Well, basically it's turning your head into that blind spot that your mirrors don't show you. And it doesn't have to be like a whole body movement. It's literally just a turn of your head into the position where you can see the blind spot. So we're talking probably about 80 degrees really, not even 90 sometimes, which allows you the luxury of then carrying out your manoeuvres safely. And also when we go around roundabouts, we always do a shoulder check on the left hand side just to make sure it's okay. You haven't got somebody trying to, on a moped or something like that, or a bicycle trying to come underneath you. And they are important, but they're missed time and time again by so many people, which is a bit worrying really, you know, because when you turn off a roundabout and you've clipped something, you know, you shouldn't really have got into that situation in the first place. And the critical thing about all this anyway is if you're in a situation like this, you know, you've put yourself there. You don't have to do the overtakes or the manoeuvre if it's not safe. You just stop. Okay, so when you're changing position in the lane, it's always good to look in your mirrors just to confirm what's happening behind you, alright? Because riding in an advanced fashion can be a bit confusing for some car drivers, because we tend, as a bike, you tend to use the whole lane. We look into all junctions as we're going past them. Every time we go past a speed sign, it's always good to do a quick over the shoulder, because you might be riding with somebody who suddenly gone, oh, I can get past him now. You know, the speed's gone up to the national speed limit as we're riding here, so I can quickly overtake that person. All right, and if you're planning a manoeuvre as well, say for example we were going to overtake this this van in front of us, okay, he might get the jump on you if you want, if that makes sense. So it's always good to do an over the shoulder as you're coming into a speed transition, either up or down, just to make sure somebody hasn't thought about doing an overtake or anything like that. This is a really hard van to follow now because he's down to doing 14 miles an hour up this hill. And you'll see how in front Toby's changing his position on the lane to match the bends. We spoke about bends before. If you go around a left-hand bend, you put yourself further out to the right, but not into a dangerous position where you're coming towards oncoming traffic. Now the road is going to the right-hand side, we put ourselves over to the left. Okay, it helps us get a better view around the vehicle. Now I know there might be a chance of an overtake coming up here, so I'm looking up where the road is going. Oh my word, this person clearly has no idea where they're going. Toby's gone for the overtake, so he did the over the shoulder early, and then he indicated, checked his mirrors and then pulled out, and it was one smooth operation, and he pulled back in front of the vehicle probably about 50 metres away. I didn't overtake because there was a junction on the right hand side. I was a little bit behind him. So here I am now. There's no chance of an overtake at the moment. I'm coming up on him because there will be soon. I'm coming into the 1 second position now. I'm looking at the road ahead, check behind me, I'm indicating and I'm going. Check behind me again, and there's overtaking 101. All done well inside the speed limit and easy to do. Exactly the same again. Overtook Toby there, check behind. So I did an over the shoulder, checking in my mirrors both sides, indicating, final check, pull out, do the manoeuvre, then pull straight back in again and carry on. It's not a rushed thing, it's not a massive handful of throttle being ripped out, you know, so it rips your shoulder off as you pull, as you accelerate. It's just nice and smooth. So that's overtaking. We've got a speed change coming up, so just before I get there, I'm reducing my speed anyway, down to 30 miles an hour. Okay, I've done an over the shoulder to make sure the person behind me hasn't tried to overtake, or if they're going too quick or they haven't even seen me, you know, I can make a plan to escape that. Okay, we're coming up to a roundabout where I'm going to turn right, so I'm checking my mirrors. I'm in the right hand side of the lane anyway. I've dropped down through my gears, and hopefully I don't have to stop, because roundabouts are all about free movement of traffic. Unfortunately I'm going to have to stop. Okay, so even though I've pulled up at the roundabout, I'm still checking around behind me. This is a bit of an awful roundabout because people tend to just barge the way across them. As I come around this roundabout, I've done it over the shoulder, over my left shoulder, and I've pulled off, and I'm in a position where I'm on the right hand side of the road because we're going around the left hand bend. And that's roundabouts. Now that can't be difficult. But how many times do you see people have issues with roundabouts? And it's all about being consistent. Now, in advanced riding, we look for consistency all the time. So you do the same thing using the system at every hazard you come to. So you use the system for information, position, speed, gear and acceleration. And that's what it's there for. It helps you plan. So we gather information from signs, from road signs, from paint on the road, tells you what's coming up. For example, in the UK, the signage we've got the paint we've got in the middle of the road here now says I can overtake on the right hand side, but cars coming towards me can't. Now we've got white lines here, so we're allowed to overtake either side if it's free to do so. It's only 40 miles an hour. So that's what observations are all around. We're looking ahead. I'm looking probably 300, 200 metres ahead now. The road is bending round to the right, and I've got junctions to my left. Look down all the junctions to make sure there's nobody going to come flying out. I'm straight lining this bend here. Okay, I'm checking my mirrors all the time. If I look in one mirror, I look in the other one as well. Okay, sharp left hand bend, move right out to the right, pick the gear that I know I can get round in, and I'm looking up the hill. As soon as I'm up the hill, I'm changing my position for the road again. So when we're talking about observations and things, I'm looking at the signposts ahead of me, and basically I've got the first junction is a junction from the right, then there's a crossroads coming up right after it. So obviously people coming out of this pub is the first junction, which is here, and there's a car just pulling out. And then right after is a crossroads. I'm looking down each one, okay, to make sure it's clear to do so. And I put myself into the safest position. Still only a 40-mile-an-hour road. As I move across the lane, I like to do a little shoulder check, just to make sure there's, if anybody's following me, they know what they can see that I'm about to move and do something that may not be classed as normal. I've moved in a bit for this vehicle, and I'm back out on the line again. Signs coming up to me now are telling me there's a zigzag and a reduced speed now sign. So the speed limit is only 40 miles an hour, so it's an acceptable speed in this position. I'm checking my mirrors again. I'm looking behind to the side because I'm coming right across the lane again. I've got a junction to my left hand side, and as soon as I'm through there, I'm putting myself in position again. And there's a car waiting to come out from the left, so I'm positioned as far away from him as I possibly can. Have a look at him. Then we've got a national speed limit, so check behind me again, and I'm increasing my speed. So the national speed limit in the UK on this type of road is 60 miles an hour, so I can get up to that quite quickly. Okay, we'll practice an overtake if we can now. So, I'm behind Toby, the 2-second mark. No overtake at the moment. The signpost coming up towards me. There's a junction on the right hand side, which is from a farm. The road sign says the first hazard is a bend to the right and then it zigzags. Okay, so I'm still 2 seconds behind Tobes. I'm looking way ahead of me now, and there is a chance of an overtake, so I'm moving into a position where I'm close enough to be 1 second away from him. I'm checking my mirrors. The overtake isn't on, so I'm dropping back again. There's a junction on the right hand side. I'm now coming up behind Toby, checking my mirrors, indicating, pulling out, 60 miles an hour, pulling back in again, and carry on with the ride. That's overtaking. It's really easy, isn't it? Nothing scary about that. And I'm using my observation skills by looking as far ahead as I can, so I can plan my overtake instead of going, oh, there's an overtake on, and really rushing through it. So I want my overtakes to be as safe as they possibly can be. And by doing that, I'm looking ahead, but I'm also very aware of what's behind me as well, and how my actions will impact on other vehicles. If I pull in front of a vehicle and cause him to slow down, that's not very good. Imagine in the UK on your driving test, if you did that, you'd fail the test. Now imagine that's a 44-ton truck you've pulled in front of, okay, and causing him to brake. You've caused him a whole world of hurt there, because he might be struggling to actually brake in the same distance that you are, so we don't want to do that. And we also want to put ourselves in positions where fellow drivers on the road can see us. So we always look to put ourselves in their mirrors so they can see us, and that might be left or right hand side.